Picture this. You're out on the open water, gripping the tiller of a sailboat. You can literally feel the exact tension of the wind pulling against the sails, right? The subtle vibrations of the rigging humming through your fingers, the immediate kinetic response of the hull slicing through the waves. It is an incredibly visceral, physical sensation. You aren't just passively steering a boat, you are actively reading the entire environment through your hands. Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to zoom way out from that sailboat and take a really fascinating biomimetic journey. We're looking at the groundbreaking framework developed by Dr. Christophe Delong, and we'll see how the biological architecture of our very own hands perfectly maps to the strategic framework of modern enterprise, especially when it's powered by advanced AI like Kinexa.
To really ground our understanding here, let's look at this profound philosophical anchor from Dr. Delong. He says, "The hand does not merely hold, it interrogates the surface." Think about that for a second. The hand isn't just some basic brute force tool for gripping things. No, it's a highly sensitive instrument of measurement. It acts as a multi-scale sensor, detecting pressure, vibration, and traction in real time. By emphasizing that word, interrogates, we really grasp the active rather than passive nature of data collection. In the sailing world, a sailor's hand is constantly interrogating the rope to optimize the boat's speed and trajectory. And as you'll see, this is exactly what a high-performing organization absolutely must do with its market.
So here is the primary narrative pivot of Dr. Delong's research, and it's honestly a real game changer. There is a surprising one-to-one connection between the biological anatomy of the human hand and the strategic framework of a business. It turns out both are cybernetic systems. They both rely entirely on sensors, actuators, transmission lines, and central governance. By understanding the biomechanics of our joints and our nervous system, we can literally map out an optimization model for corporate strategy. Crazy, right? But you might be wondering, how does a modern company actually process all of this massive sensory data? Well, enter Kinexa. You can think of Kinexa as the digital nervous system of the enterprise. In the living organism of a company, Kinexa is that absolutely critical artificial intelligence layer acting exactly like a neuromuscular feedback loop. It automates complex decision flows and transforms raw, overwhelming data into clear, actionable trajectories. Think about it. Without a healthy nervous system, your hand is completely numb. Without AI layers like Kinexa, the enterprise is flying absolutely blind. Okay, let's dive into this and see exactly what Kinexa does to keep the whole shebang moving. Just like a sailor's fingertips feeling the microscopic, high-frequency vibrations of the wind through a rope, Kinexa's algorithms are finely calibrated for the detection of weak signals in the market. We're talking about catching a subtle shift in consumer sentiment before a trend even explodes. It automates those complex decision flows and uses predictive analysis to instantly adjust the organization's trajectory. By converting raw data into actionable sales or operational paths, it drastically reduces systemic friction. It's essentially perfectly simulating the psychomotor coordination of the human body. Section 1. The anatomy of performance, the physical mapping of management. Let's methodically map this out, piece by piece. Think of the pulps of your fingertips. Those are the areas with the absolute highest density of nerve receptors. In our model, this represents sensory reception. In a business context, this is your data analysis on the front lines. Then you have your joints, which provide mobility and pivot points. That represents your organizational agility. The median nerve, which carries signals back and forth, well, that's your internal communication flow. And finally, the palm of your hand, which provides the stable, firm base for any grip, represents governance and leadership. Because let's face it, if your palm isn't stable, your fingertips absolutely cannot do precision work. Let's actually isolate the thumb for a second. The thumb is incredibly unique because it's opposable. It provides the absolute stabilizing anchor for the entire hand. You simply cannot perform a precision task, like, say, holding a pen or tuning a delicate instrument, without the fixed point of the thumb. So, in our biomimetic model, the thumb is executive leadership and strategic vision. It's the fundamental anchor that secures the trajectory of the entire company, which then allows the rest of the fingers to make all those fine adjustments without losing their grip. Next up, we have the tendons. Now, tendons glide through sheaths to transmit force from the muscles to the bones. In a corporate structure, your tendons are your middle management. Their whole job is to fluidly transmit the energy and the vision of the directors all the way down to the operational levels, without any loss of power. But here is an absolutely critical warning. If tendons experience too much friction, they become inflamed. In a business, this organizational friction leads directly to middle management burnout, and that literally paralyzes the entire system. To prevent that nasty inflammation, we have to look to a fundamental law of physics called tensegrity.
Tensegrity is the perfect dynamic balance between elements that are in compression, like the rigid bones in your hand or the hard mast of a sailboat, and elements in tension, like your tendons or a boat's rigging. A complex business has to maintain this exact balance. Too much rigidity, and you snap. Too much tension, and you lose your shape entirely. Perfect tensegrity maximizes your dynamic resilience. When tensegrity fails, though, we encounter what Dr. Delong brilliantly calls organizational carpal tunnel. Too much top-down pressure essentially compresses the communication nerves. The company completely loses its tactile sensitivity to the market. It literally becomes numb and way too bureaucratic. In sharp contrast, the ideal state is the light hand. In sailing, they always say the hand must be firm in a velvet glove. In management, this simply means steering with the absolute minimal tension necessary to get the job done. That is what creates maximum kinetic agility. Section 2. Transposition to the medical field. The hospital as a living organism. So if we look at a hospital as a living biomimetic organism, the staff perfectly embody the specialized biology we've just been discussing. First off, surgeons and nurses on the floor are the distal phalanges, or fingertips. They require incredible tactile sensitivity and micro-precision to read the biological wind of the patients. Supporting them, health executives and head nurses act as the tendons, coordinating the interfaces between different departments and keeping those transmissions fluid. Finally, the hospital directors serve the structural, foundational role of the sailboat's mast. Let's actually look a bit closer at that mast analogy. A hospital institution has to act exactly like a ship's mast during a massive storm. It must be rigidly planted to provide absolute safety and stability for both the crew and the patients. But, and this is crucial, it must be capable of bending. During major health crises or sudden patient surges, the institutional structure has to flex to absorb the overpressure. Because if it's too rigid, the mast snaps, and the entire hospital system breaks down. Section 3. Towards the total hand. The ultimate model of biological engineering. The total hand is basically a biomimetic utopia. It describes an entity that is so perfectly integrated, it operates as a single living cybernetic system. It's highly sensitive, relying on distributed sensors to really feel the market. It's instantly reactive, using structural reflexes to respond to shocks long before they cause damage. It operates with perfect tensegrity, allowing for fluid flexibility. Through advanced layers like Kinexa, it makes incredibly precise microadjustments. It is perfectly aligned, ensuring force is transmitted without middle management inflammation. All of this makes it an incredibly resilient living structure. To achieve this level of mastery, an organization has to bridge the gap between two very different worlds. Down at the microscale, you have the fine, high-frequency data points, the slight shifts in consumer behavior, and the millimeter adjustments being made by AI like Kinexa. Then at the macro scale, you have the massive, overarching stability of corporate governance, or the strong spine of the hospital mast. You simply cannot have a high-performance organization unless the microsensory input flawlessly informs the macrostructural output. It's all completely connected. Which leaves us with a really powerful final thought. Think about the teams you work with right now, the leadership structure you operate under, and the technology you use. Ask yourself, are your communication nerves compressed? Are your middle management tendons inflamed from too much friction? Is your organization numb to the signals of the market? Or is it a fully alive, highly sensitive, and agile total hand? Take that question with you as you navigate the turbulent waters of your own industry. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.